Welcome to the John McAllister Report with top football talent evaluator John McAllister interviewing college and high school coaches and athletes. Enjoy today's podcast.
This is John McAllister, and today my guest is a friend of mine, a really good, young, hardworking football person at the University of Toledo. Ricky Ciconne is the director of player personnel and football recruiting. I've known him for a few years. He's young family, and he works really hard. He's considered in the support staff at UT, and he can't coach, but he does a lot of different things, wears a lot of different hats. He's in camps. He's in charge of the camps. He's in charge of recruiting. He works with all the 10 coaches and the head coach. He does all the things and extra. And I really appreciate him. He's articulate. He also understands the recruiting process and the camp process and all those things. I'm excited to have him on. I'm excited to talk with him. And I'm excited that you're going to learn a lot from Ricky Ciconne from University of Toledo. So sit back and enjoy my podcast. Thank you. Ricky Ciconne is my guest today, as I said, and he is at the University of Toledo. Coach Ciccone, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Mr. McAllister. How are you?
Okay. Tell me, Ricky, we're talking, and I'm going to flash it here in a minute. You're the director of player personnel and recruiting at the University of Toledo. Define player personnel. What's your role?
Yeah, so it's really all encompassing in terms of, from a roster management, obviously the 85 scholarships that we have to, in fact, overseeing the walk-on program, that we have in place as well. So really total roster management, assisting Coach Candle in that regard, as well as, the other 10 full-time assistants in terms of how it relates to their position. And then, from a recruiting standpoint, anytime, our coaches go on the road recruiting, I help plan and oversee that. And then, anytime a prospect and their family, come on campus, I'm extremely involved in that in terms of planning, the day and the overall visit.
Okay.
So it's really all encompassing anything, doing, that has to do with the roster to recruiting, I'm extremely involved in and really kind of oversee.
And you are extremely busy. Okay, let's add that to that. And then the other thing we talked, if somebody says he's a member of the support staff at university, what is a support staff?
Yeah, support staff is really, you're off the field, classified as an off the field member of the organization, meaning that, you're not a coach. You're not allowed to coach on the field. Your primary role is to support the full-time staff, that are on the field coaches, as well as the head football coach.
But technically you can't do any coaching.
I can't do any coaching, on the field coaching, anything like that. I don't go on the road, in terms of recruiting unless, maybe we have, some turnover within our full-time staff, then I could be a replacement, and go on the road then. But really, in my time, I've gone on the road, a number of times, and then I was on the field in 2018, so that was different, right. In terms of, my role and responsibilities then. But yeah, when you're off the field and we're at max capacity with the 10 full-time assistants, during the spring evaluation or, fall evaluation contact period, whatever period we're in, I'm not allowed to go on the road, as well as, any other support staff members.
Right. And you still your Toledo is a member of the Mid-American Conference in a
Yep.
group of 5. And so you don't quite have the luxuries of some of those big Power 5 schools. So you don't get a whole room of guys helping with recruiting. Just
Sure.
looking at video, so that's obviously a definite disadvantage, but still you make do with what you have. Okay, let's talk about I know you form lists, and you and I have talked before, and what's the best way for a prospect to get a hold of you?
Honestly, I think through their high school coach, or, an assistant on the staff, that we have relationships with. I think email is hard. Honestly, like,
right.
Sometimes things get missed, on accident, just because we get, inundated with so many different emails, kind of throughout the day. So, that way, in terms of direct communication, for me, it would be, obviously call, text, social media. Those are really good ways to get in touch with myself, as well as, some of our other staff members, as well.
Okay. How about
but I think that way, especially if you're a young guy, because there's certain rules, that are in place, so if you're an underclassman and you're a sophomore and you text us, or we miss a phone call, or, you shoot us a direct message, we're not allowed to respond, until September 1, of their junior year, when you can start having electronic communication. So, that part of it, early on, I would say, going through the high school coach, and that's really how we proceed.
The very best way, go through your high school coach. And then
Yep.
We're going to go into something else here in a minute. Let's talk about official and unofficial visits briefly. Just
Sure.
briefly tell me about official and unofficial visits.
So I'll start with unofficial visits first, because really prospects will take unofficial visits way before they get into the official visit world. So unofficial visits, starting, your freshman year, you can take unofficial visits, whether it be just a regular campus visit, meeting with the staff, game visits, to, spring ball visits as well. And then kind of off of that, the difference there is an unofficial visit, the university is not allowed to pay for transportation. If you're staying in a hotel, not allowed to pay for, for the hotel stay or meals. So it's all out of pocket, and it's up to the prospect and their family, to cover all expenses. So official visits, a couple years ago, they put it in place where, starting April 1 of the prospect's junior year, they can start taking official visits, when it's, obviously we're in the spring evaluation, or we were in a quiet period. Now we're in the spring evaluation, and then it goes back into, a quiet period, really starting June. So as long as it's not a dead period, you can take up to 5 official visits, and you get up to 48 hours. They're all expenses paid in terms of, if you're driving, you get mileage. If you're flying, you get your flight, your airfare taken care of. They can put you up in a hotel, and they cover all the meals as well.
Right. And the thing there too, I think, is you kind of want to hold off. You don't want to use all those official visits right away. And then, you'll kind of want to make sure, where you really want to visit, rather than just sightseeing almost.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you want to, take official visits to, to places that you're really, really serious about, and you've really narrowed, things down in terms of your recruitment, where you could possibly, see yourself, going to school and, really living for the next, 4 or 5 years.
Yes. Okay. Let's talk about evals or evaluations.
Sure.
Or if you hear the word evals now,
Mm-hmm.
okay, they're going on now. Okay. Let's talk about what's the time period, first of all, Coach, tell me.
So right now, where we're at currently, we're in the spring evaluation period. So,
Right.
in this calendar year, it was April 15th through the end of May. And
Okay.
schools, you get 168 total days, amongst your 10 full-time staff members. The head coaches are not permitted to be on the road recruiting at the FBS level. So, within those 2 visits to the school, the first, you can have one's an academic evaluation and then the other is an athletic. So, you could have both an academic and an athletic evaluation take place on the same day, which is permissible. You're permitted to do. And then, the second visit then would be an athletic evaluation.
Right. Okay.
And you can look at it from a variety of different ways. Well, what is an athletic evaluation? Say, they're in the weight room working out. They have an speed agility day, on the field work, at their high school. And then from there, it could be, you go to a baseball game, track meet, so that could also classify as an athletic evaluation. And, it has to take place at, their school. So,
Right.
we can only be at a high school and watch guys that are working out attend that high school,
Right.
so the only way you can go off campus would be if, it's at their stadium and it's at an off-campus site, or, it's their regular, workout facility and it happens to be off campus, but it is still affiliated with that high school, and only, members, players from that particular high school are able to do that, to that attend, I should say.
Yeah, they have. There have been some coaches down in Southwest Ohio try to have like schools all together, but it's really not in the long run beneficial, I don't think.
Well, there are kind of throughout the state and in other states, they have, when it kind of starts to get a little warmer, typically or a couple of weeks into the, to the spring evaluation, they'll have, combine days. So, school A would be at, 7 a.m. to 8:30, at 9 o'clock, school B would go, and they're really on the field, athletic evaluations, so,
Right.
And then obviously, with the position work and, you can talk about, different prospects, academic background and get a transcript and, so those things can get evaluated as well.
I think it's a great idea. I know I'm going to Dayton area and going to the Columbus, Central Ohio area. And I don't know for sure where else I'm going, but you got to scoot, you got to hustle, but it's a chance to see the kids. And
yeah,
I mean, it's good. And I think for me personally, Ricky, that it's so important to see kids. Like I go down and watch a baseball pitcher, boy, he's a quarterback, but man, it's a great for me because you can see. Now,
I mean, yeah, we're in the same position. I mean, we want to see guys work. We want to see them compete. We want to see them, how they take coaching, how they interact with their peers and their teammates. So I think all those, are critically important, but I think the combine workout days have been really, really beneficial, that way, because obviously we don't have spring football up here, so we're able to see a lot of different guys and, in an athletic setting.
Yeah. Well, I think it's huge.
Mm-hmm.
It's huge. That's kind of you're checking out your first date, so to speak. Now, tell me about camp. Well, let's go back. I'm sorry. When a coach comes into your school, what is, or you would do it, your own experience. What do you expect from the kids? Well, what should a kid, a player, what are you looking for with him just in that eval?
Yeah, I mean, you're really looking at everything from, body language to how they carry themselves, how they interact, with their teammates and peers, as well as their coaches, how they take instruction, how they work, what the work ethic looks like. Is it intentional and efficient as well? So really you're evaluating everything, and we're constantly evaluating prospects in everything that they do, and they should view it, as such, like, whenever they go to, to a college campus, or we go into the high school and we're able, to see them work out or interact with them on our campus, we're trying to get to know them as much as they should be, trying to get to know us as well.
Exactly. A couple of things that I've written down over the years. I think they have to stand tall when they come to see you. That's kind of what I was alluding to right now.
Yep.
They have to stand tall. They have to show a kind of a presence of confidence, maybe.
Yeah.
And I think they also, and the other one, there are a lot more, but the other one I think so neat is they need to ask you a couple questions. Now, it's one of the most broken rules in NCAA as far as how much conversation you can say. But if
when we're on their campus, you're allowed to introduce yourself, and that's really it.
But that rule's broken sometimes, I think, and you got to be careful. I'm talking, but the other thing is, if a first conversation you have with a prospect, maybe ask him what camp dates are. The prospect should add. I think he's got to show an interest in your situation. But
yeah, they do. And I think, it's best when they're, on your campus, so you can legally have, all the conversation, that you can have. And then you can also, interact and, ask them questions. But yeah, I think prospects, excuse me, when they go to campuses, they need to do their research. They, on, for example, Toledo, they need to know who the head coach is. Who their position coaches, who the coordinators are, and then from there, who's recruiting me, okay, well, I play this position, but my recruiting coach is this coach, they need to, to find those questions out. And then they need to figure out, have an idea or try to figure out what they're looking for. I think academically, athletically, and socially, really those three areas. And have good questions, and then when they go to the next school, ask questions, because then you can start comparing and contrasting in terms of things that you like, what you don't like, because at the end of the day, like, they're going to have to live it, for 4 or 5 years, and they got to have all the information, that they want and need, and this is a process, the recruiting process. It's just that, it's a process.
For sure.
And it's about relationships.
Connections and relationships. For
absolutely.
Exactly. Now let's talk about, I don't want you, because you have camps coming up, and then I have a couple more questions, and stuff goes so fast, but the camps, tell me, how many camps should let's start from May 31st or whenever the colleges are going. Tell me how many camps. It probably depends on the individual, but how many camps should a person go to?
I mean, honestly, I don't think more than 5, to be quite honest with you. And I wouldn't put, schedule back-to-back camp days either, in terms of, because you're going to probably perform if you go, 2 or 3 days in a row, you're probably going to be a little tired, that especially that third day. In terms of what that looks like, but pick a couple camps that that you're interested in, and schools that you're interested in, and honestly, like, where you can be seen, and also too where it's instructional camp, because you're there to learn too, right. And it's not just about running 40s and doing pro agility and where you actually get a chance to have, direct instruction, and it's relevant to your position that you play, so that you can continue to, learn and grow as a player as well. But, there's a fine line between the camps. You have to go to camps, you have to be seen. Coaches want to see you live, and that's part of the evaluation and the recruiting process. And, but there's also that fine line in terms of like being with your team, because I think, through the month of June, like that's critically important as well. And, what's the best way to really get evaluated and recruited? Have team success, have a ton of team success. And, that's just kind of my opinion on it. But it is a part of the recruiting process, and you do have to go to camps.
Okay, let's talk about, and I think it's overlooked sometimes. I know University of Toledo holds them, but tell me about 7-on-7. I guess what's the behavior? How should a player that's a top recruit or a possible recruit, what's his manner? What are his mannerisms and stuff? Why are those important in 7-on-7?
Well, body language, is critically important. How they carry themselves,
Effort.
effort, the competitiveness that you play with, down in, down out. Are you running to the football? Are you finishing plays? Because, those things show up, and really you're putting, giving a preview of, really who you are as a player,
Right.
and what's important to you. The competitive toughness that you have. So we want to see guys work. We want to see guys compete. And, I think, in those settings, like, you're still getting evaluated.
Right.
It's still part of the process. So really it's everything that you do, and I think the other part of this too is like, from our end of things, like we watch highlight films. Yep, they're great. We'll continue to watch highlight films. But when we get into, really in the thick of the evaluation process, we're watching game film.
Right.
Because we want to know who that prospect is, in terms of the good, the bad, the ugly, and, what they do well, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are. And also too, like at critical moments in games, do they show up? How do they play, when it's a tight ball game, or, it's it's 3rd and 2 in a one possession game, are you showing up? Are you making your teammates better, around you, and elevating their game, or do you not show up? Because, we'll watch, a little bit of a blowout win or a blowout loss, and just, to get a gauge and to see, but, when things are, at critical moments, who are you?
Right. Good. And honestly, that's game, but I think 7-on-7 sometimes, you can see the same things. Obviously, not on the same scale, but I guess I'm encouraging prospects when they go to 7-on-7s, they work hard.
Absolutely. I mean, you're there to get better, and, there to help your team. And I mean, why would you not compete? If you're a true competitor and you love it,
right?
Why would you not? So it's an opportunity for you to continue to grow and get better. So yeah, I think there's, in anything that you're doing in a competitive situation, especially with your team too, give it your all, really, So, and we'll go out, at different times, when the calendar permits, if you're a basketball player or wrestler, like we'll go to those, to see how, again, it's part of the process, and, see how guys compete, how they interact, in a different part of, really some athleticism, see what your short area burst and quickness, change of direction, lateral agility, body control and balance, like all those things, because they're all, they all matter, it's part of the process.
Okay. Well, Coach Ciccone, I really appreciate you being on this show. There's a wealth of knowledge you've expounded. I think they have to rerun through this to keep everything, review everything you've said, because it's so good and it's so real. And give me the parting shot here. What's your best advice for any level? Let's go, especially 24 and 25s.
Yeah.
24. What's your best advice for those guys?
I mean, I think for anybody, you got to worry about what you can control. Like, you're still so early in this process. You got to continue to work, whether you're trying to get your first offer or you have 15, because you got to continue to work. You got to continue to put good days together, and you can't, get caught up in the recruiting process. You got to worry about what you can control. Obviously your attitude, your effort, how you are as a teammate, and your overall work ethic. you know, because just because you have those offers at a, you know, guys have offers at an early age, like you've got to go out and honestly still validate those offers too, you know, and that's part of it. So, you know, go to camps, you know, continue to get exposure, continue to work, continue to be a great teammate as well, and continue to hone your skills.
Coach, thank you very much for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me, John. I appreciate it.
Thank you.